So I'm Matt Miller. I guess a lot of you may know me from Tenchi, although I've done a lot of other stuff as well. And usually with these panels, I just kind of like to do a little bit of background and then open it up to questions. I find that's usually the best way it works. If I'm closest to it isn't so loud. You got that? Thank you. So Tenchi was my first anime, and then I did a lot of anime after that as well, but Tenchi was probably the biggest project I worked on. Lasted, as you know, if you're familiar with it all, lasted, we did it for years. 3 films and 2 OVAs and all the series. And it was a lot of fun. Patria Burchard is here as well, as you may know, who plays Ryo-Ohki. And subsequently from that, got a lot of anime work after that. So if you go on imdb.com, you can look at all the credits and see all the stuff I've done. Miyazaki stuff, Biohunter, and did a lot of games too, and Final Fantasy. And so, but I also am a theater actor, classically trained theater actor. Done some TV, some film. So I kind of try and do it all, not just anime, not just voiceover, but so that's a little about me. I'm also a playwright and a theater director, and now I'm a teacher as well. I teach at the community college in Sacramento. I teach theater, so keeping myself busy. So with that, I'd like to open up to any questions anybody has about anything. Anime, anything about Tenchi? Yeah.
I was wondering, what was your favorite thing about Tenchi that you liked the most about playing it?
Just the energy, I guess, of Tenchi. It was always interesting. It was always unpredictable. I had no idea what was going to happen next. And plus, it was my first one too. I had no experience with it really. And the thing about, maybe you guys know a lot about how it works, dubbing animation into another language, or maybe you don't. But in Japan, of course, if you're doing original animation, they record the voices first. In America, they record the voices first, then they animate to the voices. In Japan, they do it the opposite. At least as far as I know, they still hasn't changed. They would do the animation first, then do the voices. So they're not as concerned with lip flaps and all that as we are. But when things made in Japan or other places come to America, American audiences expect those lip flaps and everything to be very precise and exact. So it makes dubbing exponentially more difficult, because you not only have to translate what's being said in the script, then you have to do a polish of a script, which somebody does to make all those syllables, all those words and phrases fit the flaps that are going on in another language on the screen, and then make it sound natural as well. It's really, really tricky. And then for the actor, you have to come up with a character, act, and at the same time match the lip flaps going on the monitor in the booth with you. So it's kind of like rubbing your head and patting your stomach, whatever that is, at the same time. And fortunately for me, it just turned out I had a knack for it. Thank goodness. Because especially that first day, the very first day we recorded the first episode, I was in the booth for 8 hours. And if you know the very first episode, it's pretty much Tenchi releasing Ryoko from her cave, and she runs around trying to blow him up and chasing him, and things are blowing up. So it was just a lot of falling downstairs and running away and being blown up. It was a lot of just vocal stuff. So it was 8 hours of that. But still, you had to match the lip flaps and the mouth openings, and it had to match and look appropriate and all that. So it was quite a baptism by fire that first day. But it was very exciting and pretty cool when it worked and got it done.
Did you have a favorite episode of Tenchi that you did particularly, or was there too many to name?
There's probably too many to name, but I think that first one will always kind of stick out because it was such a new experience for me and such a strange and at the same time comfortable thing. I don't know why I had, who knows why we have a knack for something that we just have. But I was able to do several lines at a time they'll give you a script and they'll just have your lines with a time code next to it. And in the booth with you is a monitor, and the monitor is running silently the action with a time code on it as well. And they'll beep you in. They'll give you 3 beeps. And on the imaginary 4th beep is when you're supposed to start talking. So if you can picture all this, I'm in a booth, I'm watching a monitor, time code, I hear a beep, and I'm supposed to start and say the line. And what I was actually able to do, for some reason, was I wouldn't have to be beeped into each individual line. I could look down, pick up a line, come up, read it, match it with the lip flaps, look down, get the next line, look up, match it with the lip flaps, look down. And I could do, sometimes I could go a page or 2 before I would mess up and they'd have to stop. And because normally it's a line, beep, 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 line, okay, stop, next line, get the next line, beep, 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 line. And what made me especially valuable to the producers was the fact that I could work fast like that, because studio recording time is very expensive. So I was able to save them money on top of doing it well. So they love you for that when you can save money. So I think that first episode will always stand out. Yeah.
What was your favorite bit of theater that you've done?
My favorite bit of theater? Gosh, that's a really tough one. You know, I did the Royal National Theatre of Great Britain produced a new adaptation of Ibsen's play, An Enemy of the People, and it was starring Sir Ian McKellen. You guys know Gandalf, right? So Ian McKellen was in it, and I got cast in it when they remounted it in Los Angeles. So I got to act with Ian McKellen and all these great British actors in this wonderful production of An Enemy of the People. So that kind of stands out. That was a big one for me.
Cool.
Yeah. Next question? Yeah.
I had a question. Again, you have your work as a theater actor and as well as a live action actor on television and films as such. You also have your work as a voice actor. With many of the live action pieces you've been able to probably go out and do research onto a particular character like Enemy of the People, see how it's been performed in different ways. But something that was come up in the panel yesterday was that many times when you were coming for voiceover work, you didn't have as much reference. You sometimes are just brought in with a script and off you go.
Yeah.
So I was curious how it compared and contrasted between creating a character for a live action piece versus the way you create a character for a animated piece when you don't have as much background. For example, like a sci-fi series like Tenchi or what was the other one you mentioned? It was Biohunter. How do you create a character with that when you have so little information or background research as compared to a live action character?
That's a good question. Yeah, you're right. Theater and things, you're able to do research if that's the way you like to work. Some people don't like to do any research, like to come in fresh. But with anime, especially original animation or anime, sometimes you wouldn't have any prep. Sometimes you would get the character design ahead of time, but a lot of times not. You would get hired for a job from your demo, come in, and they say, okay, this is the deal. It's a sci-fi thing. There's demons and monsters. Here's your character, and they'll always at least give you the designs. Here's what he looks like. Oh, I see. He looks like a warthog with a helmet on, and so I give him just kind of and you have to instantly come up with something. And with the union contract, they can get 3 voices out of you before they have to pay you more. So you may get handed 3 characters, and of course they want them to sound completely different. So you just have to come up with it on the spot. And if they like it, they'll say, yeah, okay, go with that voice. Or if they say, they may give you some adjustment. No, make him deeper, or make him crazier, make him madder, whatever, they'll adjust. But you got to come up with it right then and there. Here's a picture of him, go. So you have to be very facile with your instrument.
I guess there would be a lot of work with the ADR director possibly to decide, okay, this one or this one.
Yeah, with ADR, and there's something that's already established, you may get more restrictions. Like, this is, here, I'll let you listen. They've done that sometimes with me. Here, I'll let you listen to the original Japanese actor. Try to match him as much as you can without imitating him. You'll get that sometimes. So it kind of restricts you a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah. You just have to be flexible. That's the main thing. Yeah. Next question. Yes?
Taking into account your live action and anime work, which role would you think was your most challenging?
Wow. Gosh. I would probably have to say I did a play, done it twice now, called Fully Committed, and it's challenging because talking about voices. In this play, Fully Committed, I play a guy in a restaurant basement who takes the reservations for this really tony restaurant in Manhattan. Everybody's trying to get into this restaurant. And I'm the poor guy that has to take the reservations. And I show up one day and nobody else is there, and I have to man the phones all by myself. But the conceit is it's one actor, and I play 40 different characters in the course of this show, which was about an hour, 20 minutes. So it's basically a 45-page monologue. Playing 40 different characters, and they have to be distinct, obviously, and you have to switch between them very quickly on stage. And doing 8 shows a week, that was really tough on the voice. I had to really take care of myself, be very careful. But that was probably the most challenging. Yeah. Next question. Yeah.
I know in recording anime, usually lots of times you'll have the actors come in different times. With Tenchi, was there any situations where you all would be in the booth together or able to...
Yeah, that's a really good question. We tried that. I think a lot of us were new at this. Everybody was new at it when I started in the early 90s working on Tenchi, 93 we started. I remember that first day of recording, too. I was opening a show that night. I was doing Sheer Madness in Santa Monica. And we tried that. Patria and I were in the booth together, because that first episode is basically the two of us. I don't think there's hardly anybody else in it, I don't think. Maybe one or two. What's that?
Tenchi's grandfather.
Tenchi's grandfather, I think, one or two of the characters. But it's mainly them. And then we tried to do that, but it was so hard to, just technically. You couldn't overlap because it would get messed up, and it didn't work. So with ADR, you really have to be in there by yourself. So doing these shows with what was that show that I'm forgetting names now. The babe, she was on Baywatch.
Pamela Anderson.
Pamela Lee Anderson. They did this series with her.
VIP.
What was it called? Stripperella. It's
wow.
terrible.
Oh, wow.
Remember? Yeah. Stripperella. So I was like, I'm working with Pamela Lee Anderson. Well, no, not really. She was there an hour before, and now I'm in there by myself, and she was in her by herself. And like the Miyazaki stuff, I'm working with Gillian Anderson. I'm working with Billy Bob Thornton. Well, I see them in passing, but we never got to be in the booth together to actually act together. So, yeah. So always by yourself. But original animation is fun because you get to do it with everybody. Yeah. Next question. Other questions? Yeah.
Question about game. Actually, you mentioned you played several characters in many games. Final Fantasy X actually comes to mind. But I was curious. With several games, you have different decision trees and different ways that a character could go. Mm-hmm. And depending upon what character you have, you may approach a character where you have one response, and another place where the character has a different response to the same question, depending on the player's answer.
Right.
What was your experience in actually playing different versions of the same character to different questions, and how to play them off of that?
Yeah, it's weird because, as you know, with the games, you can have all kinds of different scenarios, and so the majority of your recording time in there is acting out these different scenarios depending on what the gamer chooses. So you'll see one line of logic, and you have to record that whole version, and then you turn the page, and there's another. If the gamer chooses something else, you have to record all that as well. So it was just sort of a slight adjustment, not too much adjustment, but just you have to cover a lot of territory vocally. Like I think it was the Medal of Honor, is that the one I think I did? One of the Medal of Honors. And that whole day in the booth, I was I was screaming because it was the middle of battle, and depending on how the battle goes, it's like medic, over here, God help me! It was like that for like 5 hours. So you never know.
Sounds tedious, actually.
It can be. You just have to be careful with your voice. Next question. Anything else about it? Yeah.
Over the many iterations of the Tenchi universe, was there any particular storyline that you did not care for?
Well, it got kind of dark and weird at one point. it sort of got a little surreal. I can't remember at what point it was or what the version was. Maybe one of you guys probably know it better than I do. But the writing just sort of kind of came off the rails a little bit. They started getting really sort of almost existential, a little surreal. And I thought, oh, this just doesn't feel like Tenchi. They started taking themselves a little too seriously, I think. It wasn't the fun, wisecracking, jokey thing it was.
Tenchi the movie 3.
The third movie was just very.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. The third movie, yeah. It was sort of, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Yeah, it was a little odd. Get some of my contact with you. So that was a little strange, but I like the fun ones. Yeah.
Besides Tenchi, who is your other favorite character in the show?
In the show?
Show.
To play or just
yeah.
I think Ryoko, because Patria and I, we've known each other way before Tenchi. We knew each other in Chicago, so I've known Patria for probably like 30 years. So we just get along great, and I think her character is so much fun too. You know, it's a woman who has power, you know, and she gets to do what she wants.
Until it's taken away.
Well, yeah, until it's taken away, but. And the banter, we always had great banter. So I think Ryoko would probably be my other favorite. Anything else? Next question.
That's another question.
Yeah.
Considering the Japan's history of having multiple wives, would you think that Tenchi would choose in order of the three?
In order? I think probably Ryoko would be number one. And then Ayaka. After that, I'm not sure.
Sasami?
Maybe Sasami just seems a little young. I don't know. Yeah, well, not young, but
Sakuya.
yeah. Maybe
His
Sasami.
daughter?
Yeah. Yeah.
Out of the characters you have played, or what was one that you didn't particularly like playing? Like you didn't really care for it.
Yeah.
There was one role.
Gosh, I don't really remember. I probably blocked it out if I didn't like it. You know.
Do you actually refuse to play characters if you don't like them?
Not too much. You don't really have that luxury as a working actor. You kind of have to take the work you get, pretty much, unless you're a star. And you don't really have the power to turn stuff down. You don't have that luxury. But yeah, there's some stuff that's better than others, obviously, and you do the stuff that's not so great. Okay.
I know Patria used to do like traffic, weather, and commercial. Did you get offers for that though?
Not too much that. She does more narration stuff than I do. You know, she's got the Stater Brothers account down in Southern California, which is a huge grocery chain. She's been doing that for years. It's a nice little commercial gig for her. But it's just straight spokesperson thing. But yes, I haven't really gone out for too much of that stuff. Anything else? Thinking. I see a hand. Yes.
Would you think or consider working on Tenchi when it comes back? Because I know it just started up again in Japan with shorts.
Yeah, I read about that, and I'd love to if they contact me. I'd be happy to. Maybe you fans write to them and tell them hire me. But I'd be happy to. I had a blast doing it. I'd do it again, sure. Yeah. I was very excited to see that. They're going to reimagine it, I guess, and
He's a student teacher. It's kind of sort of continuation, kind of reimagine. It's really weird.
Is it weird? Yeah.
It's really weird.
It's classic Tenchi. You'll love it.
Yeah.
It's much more the lighthearted stuff that you were just describing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more what it's like.
Okay. Good. Fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
he is.
22 in that, actually.
Yeah, he's college age, actually.
Kind of grown up a little bit, finally. Huh?
He's a teacher of all things.
After all these years.
Growed long hair, just like in the third movie. That never happened.
Yeah. Excellent. What else? Do you guys have any questions about the process and how it works? I know I've kind of described already, but any mysteries of how that all gets put together?
Do they usually have a call list of current actors that they look for, or do they have an open call?
They usually, if it's something they're casting first time, they have an open call. That's how I got Tenchi. I had heard to someone I knew that the Pioneer was producing this project, and I didn't know anything from anime, and I just knew voiceover work, and as an actor, I'm looking for work. So I made a cassette tape, just to show you how long ago this was, and put my audition on cassette tape and sent it in, like everybody else. And they chose mine, so I was just really lucky. I've crashed auditions, though. That's how I got James Bond Jr. I almost got the lead in James Bond Jr.
Really?
Yeah, it was down to me and Corey Burton. Damn that Corey Burton. Getting the food out of my mouth, that guy. No, he's brilliant. He's been doing it for so many years. But I was a newcomer, and I knew they were having this open call. I knew they were going to be seeing everybody, so I thought, oh, they won't notice me. I'll sneak in. So I knew where it was, and I signed in. I went in there and auditioned, and the director, Sue Blue, was the director. If you've probably seen, yeah, you've seen her name. Yeah, she's still doing stuff. She's been around forever. And she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "What age are you with?" And I told her, and she's like, "Okay." She brought me back, and I was up for the lead, and that would have been sweet. But it was down to me and Corey Burton. Corey Burton got it, but she said, "I'll bring you in for some incidental roles in the episodes," and she did. I did about half a dozen of those episodes of James Bond Jr., different characters and stuff. And that's fun because that's an original animation. That's when you get to record with everybody all in the same room, where you're joking around and you do a rehearsal, then you record, and you're done in like 4 hours. For the rest of the day, you've done an episode, you're done. It's great for the rest of the day. And then at the end of it, we give everybody a gag reel on CD, because when you're all in there together, you goof up together, and everybody teases each other, and yeah, swearing and everything. So those are fun. It's more fun than being there by yourself. Yeah.
You said that you were teaching theater.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought, or has it ever crossed your mind of maybe being like an ADR director for anime or voice acting?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't. The directing side of that, the ADR doesn't really interest me as much to really pursue it. It's quite a skill. And Jack Fletcher, who I worked with for many years, and a lot of the Tenchis and a lot of Miyazaki, he's great. He's a great director, but just like to act. Yeah. Theater, I like directing theater, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more of my bailiwick. Anything else? Questions? Yes?
We know that Tenchi took quite a while to complete, but on average, like for a game, how long would that take to complete?
That's so it can be a long time, because as you know, you have to pan out every scenario, every possible scenario that a gamer can choose. So it's hours and hours of recording. In Final Fantasy, what was my character's name? Clasco? Clasco, yeah. With what were the animals called?
Chocobos.
Chocobos.
He was a chocobo farmer.
So I was always talking about chocobos and everything. So it takes a long time. You have to have those actors in there a long time so they can cover every scenario. Yeah.
Is there anything you're working on right now that you can talk about?
No voiceover stuff I can talk about. Just really theater right now. I'm starting a rehearsal for production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar in February. That's coming up. That's the only thing I know for sure. I got some other possibilities, but that's the only thing for sure.
So what role are you playing in Julius Caesar?
Julius Caesar.
Oh, ooh, man.
Where is this at?
Everybody, where is it? You say?
Yeah.
It's a theater in Northern California, Sacramento Theater Company. Yeah. It's funny, everybody's always impressed with, you're playing Julius Caesar, but Julius Caesar's actually it's kind of a small part. You get killed in the third act, you're done.
I was wondering, are you going to be like doing some stuff behind the scenes, or like side directing or assistant directing?
They might ask me to do fight choreography. I direct fights as well. I do fight choreography, and sometimes they ask me to do dialect work. I'm a dialect coach as well, and an acting coach. So I'm kind of half expecting to ask me to do the fights. Which would be great. Yeah.
So do you find theater work to be something more enjoyable overall than voice work, or do you prefer the more casual situation of being in the booth doing voice work, or do you like the more high pressure of being on stage and needing to rehearse, daily for weeks on end and making sure everything's perfect on stage?
Yeah, I prefer stage because you have that audience right there. You get that immediate feedback, that symbiotic relationship you have with an audience. The energy you get from them helps fuel your energy on stage, and the reactions you can get from a live audience are very gratifying, whereas being stuck in a little cold, sealed booth by yourself all day, it's
Wonder
not
if anybody's going to even see it.
You're right. Exactly. That's what Daryl, one of the other guests, we were talking about at the opening ceremonies. Is that's what's so cool to come and see you guys and meet you, because you are in that little booth by yourself and you're just recording it, and then you're done. You go home and you never see it or hear from it again, and you don't realize that years and years people have been watching it and deriving so much pleasure from it. Until you come to a con and everybody says, "Oh my God, I love it," and I love you guys. It's like, wow, really? You have no idea. But when you're in theater and you're on that stage, if it's working, there's nothing better. And if it's not, there's nothing worse. If they're not responding to you, you know it, and you got to fix it, do better. So that's why it's more fun. Anything else? Yeah.
Actually, I was curious. You mentioned there's a lot of symbiotic relationship between an actor on stage and their audience, and you don't have that as immediate when you're a voice actor or voiceover artist. I've heard horror stories from other voice actors who, for example, Peter Cullen, who plays Optimus Prime in the Transformers franchise. His character was killed off in the '86 film, and he didn't know about the fan reaction to that, like how many children were in tears over that, until like years later when the convention thing became more of a something that he did. And I was curious for you, how did you find out about some of the fans who do love your work, both not only Tenchi but in other things like Biohunter and the Final Fantasy series and so on? How did you? What was your first experience with that?
Well, my first con was '99 in Toronto, the Anime North, which is a pretty big one. And flew up for that one, and that was my first exposure to the fan base and people's reaction to what I'm doing in that little booth by myself, thousands of miles away. So it's really the cons where I get to find out and hear from people and see how much they liked it. But of course now with the internet, it's a little easier for people to reach out and to have these like the Tenchiforum has interviewed me on YouTube. If you guys want to subscribe to Tenchiforum, they do interviews. They've interviewed me and they've interviewed Patria. So that's a good way to see fans, and then fans have reached out to me on my YouTube channel and contacted me other ways. So hearing about it is a little easier now, and being more accessible. So I'm finding out that way as well. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I've heard from some voice actors that they'll come in and record their voice and go, and that's it. Have you taken the time to sit down and actually watch through all the Tenchi shows?
I've never watched all of them, no. I've watched some. But I have a 6-year-old son now, and he's now getting into all that stuff. And he's really into Pokemon right now. He's got the whole folder of Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all that stuff. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he responds to it. He's, what has he seen? My wife, I'm looking at my wife, Catherine, she's in the back there. You've seen Fern Gully, right?
He has seen Fern Gully.
Seen Fern Gully too.
About the Fern Gully. In the opening ceremonies you talked about how they replaced your voice in the singing.
Oh, yeah.
Maddie, when he sings the song.
Yeah.
So Max is watching, he's probably 4, and we're watching, and I want him to understand. Listen, close your eyes, listen. Who is that? Can you tell who is that? That's Daddy, that's Daddy. Oh, that's Daddy. And then it gets to the song, and he goes, that's not Daddy.
Can't fool him. He's pretty sharp.
He is sharp.
Yeah, I worked my ass off on that damn song. And I thought, it was passable. Batty's not supposed to be an opera singer. It's just supposed to be, it's this sort of gospel, if any of you have seen Fern Gully too, So I'm taking over for Robin Williams, not too much pressure. So because they want you to be like Robin Williams, but don't imitate Robin Williams. Do what he does, but don't do what he does. So I did the best I can, and they really liked it. But then it came to the song, and I thought, well, Robin Williams isn't a great singer. I can kind of fake my way through this. But I worked really hard, tried to sing this song, and I did it all. And okay, we went home, and then I watched it. I was like, that's not me. They replaced my singing. Oh, well. But that happens, it's crazy business, too. It happens with names. Like doing, I had a bigger part in Princess Mononoke. Many of you guys know that one. I was the guy he goes through the forest with. And did all this recording, and then I was sitting out in the lobby, and one of the producers was there, and she says, "Oh yeah, I think we're going to replace you with Flea." You know who Flea is? He was the
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Flea, really? First of all, there's a person named Flea, and they're a voice actor. No, he's with Chili. Oh well, so you just never know. Like they think the kids are going to be able to tell. The decisions sometimes are crazy. Yeah.
Now, when they replace you like that, you still get paid, don't you?
Well, not. Yeah, I got paid for recording,
Yeah.
but then you don't get any residuals, right?
Ah.
Yeah. But I did. But I still was playing other parts in the movie, other smaller parts. Yeah. So you just never know. Yeah.
I guess last summer of 2013, I went to Anime Blues in Memphis, and I saw Steve Bloom, and he said he has a recording studio set up in his house, and he does. Do you have anything set like that at your house?
I have a small setup. Yeah, more and more, it's really easier if any of you guys aspire to do that. You can be a voiceover actor from your home pretty much anywhere now if you're aggressive enough. You can set up a little in-house studio in a closet or a bedroom or something, and without too much investment. And there are websites now that you can send an audition in to be like books on tapes. There's one site called ACX, and they'll take submissions for recording books on tape, and you can submit just like along with everybody else, and work and get paid and work from your home no matter where you live. So more and more, that's the anime stuff, not so much, because you have to kind of be there at their studio because there's so much engineering involved. But you can have a career as a voiceover person pretty much anywhere now. Yeah, look into it. Yeah.
Do voice actors have their own union, or are you with the Screen Actors Guild?
Screen Actors Guild covers it.
It does.
Yeah. But there's a lot of non-union work too. A lot. Yeah. Check it out. Yes.
Have you done a lot of book recordings?
I haven't too much. I used to, where in the city, wherever I lived in Chicago and in LA, I would do recording for the blind, but that was on a volunteer basis. I would just do that just because it was a nice thing to do, and it was kind of cool for me to keep my voice trained as well. But now you can get, but you can also get paid for doing books on tape. Yeah, ACX. There's a few websites now, but I haven't done too much of it myself. Any other questions? Yeah.
When a particular company hires you to do work, do they pay for flying you out to where you need to be and for
they have to provide transportation for you. Yeah. And to and from. And housing as well. Put you up at everybody. Yeah. It's pretty nice. Because otherwise it would just be cost prohibitive to try to. You'd spend the money you were going to make trying to get there. Sometimes. Yeah.
Earlier in this talk, you were saying that if you do more than 3 voices in an anime, you have to get paid more. Can you explain that further?
Yeah. The union agreement is 3 voices for minimum session fee. So if you walk in, they get 3 out of you. If they want a 4th voice, then they have to pay another increment of salary for a session fee. Yeah. So they can work it sometimes.
But if you do like an old Tenchi or a young Tenchi, or that's just still one character, right?
That's a good question, actually. Because that came up. You have to do. I think there was some flash forwards in the storyline, and so to do Tenchi old. I think I played my father at one point. You know. So it was kind of, what is a different character? And I think the union will come down on the actor's side and say, no, that's a different character. Yeah, that's good. They'll stand up for you. Unions, yes. Yes. Saved my life. Anything else? Yeah.
I don't know if this was answered already, but there was such a huge gap between Tenchi Muyo, Tenchi Universe, Tenchi in Tokyo to Tenchi Muyo Ryo-Ohki. What was it like coming back after that so long?
It was pretty easy. I walk in the booth and I go, Ryoko! And they go, oh, there he is. There's that voice. It's still there. So it wasn't too much trouble to jump back into it. It just fit. It was like a comfortable.
Were you excited to come back?
Yeah. As long as the writing is good, and it's fun, and everybody's professional, and it's a good environment. Yeah, it's great. I wouldn't mind. It's like an old comfortable old jacket. Putting it back on. Yeah. So I hope they call about this new one. It sounds really cool. Yeah.
Have you watched a lot of anime, or you just kind of came in there and said, "What's going on here"?
When first it came into it, I was like, "What is?" I have no idea what this is. I mean, I grew up watching Speed Racer, so that was my introduction to anime, and I didn't even know it was anime. When you're a kid, you don't know. You don't think about that stuff.
Gigantor, Astro Boy, Kimba, and Speed Racer.
Kimba, yeah, it was Speed Racer and Kimba.
Yep.
Yeah, back to back. They were great, though. Yeah, in my day.
I asked my parents, I said, why did the characters they don't look like Disney? I said, honey, that's the way they draw them. And that's when I knew it was Japanese.
Yeah, now we know. Now it's like, oh,
the big eyes.
Right, those big eyes. Can't mistake that. Yeah.
How do you go about creating like a new kind of voice for a character? What steps do you take?
It's really just your imagination. You have to really rely on that. You look at a character design and think, what occurs to me? What do I think that creature or person would sound like? And you just kind of rely on your instincts. And you develop those through acting, theater acting, get some actor training, do theater, community theater, wherever you can, and just develop your chops and develop that imagination.
Did you get any training for voice acting, or did you just...
None at all. I think I was a class clown. I used to mess around with my voice all the time, imitate people, that kind of route. Make fun of the teachers, imitate the teachers and stuff.
You'll amount to nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're a wise guy. Yeah, nothing. Yeah. Well, turns out there's a use for it. Yeah. So it's, but I never had. That's a good question. I never had any formal training for voiceover, particularly. It was all theater and actor based, and then just messing around. Yeah.
Well, in that same vein, you were saying that you had worked with Corey Barton, Susan Blue, and so on, and I remember them from like the Gen 1 Transformers in the 80s.
Yeah.
And is there, again, you're saying that experience is probably one of the best things that an actor can get, both in voiceover and in live action. So, did you get a lot of feedback from your fellow actors in doing some of these things, in working with whether voiceover work or live action theater?
No, the protocol is you never give another actor notes or comments. It's just that's the protocol. That's the director's job, and that's their purview, and you never comment on another performer's performance while you're working with them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, professional courtesy. Yeah.
Is there any ritual you have before you step into a recording booth?
Ritual? No.
Gargle?
No, there's those things you all do. You have to take in plenty of water, and there's a whole vocabulary that goes into things. Like the engineer will tell you things like you're popping, which means you probably need some water. I sometimes take a bite of an apple. Just take a bite of an apple, and it takes away all that things that'll get in the way. Like you start a line with a lot of P's and you start popping, you'll hear that on the microphone, and you have to back off, or you have to make adjustments, or you're cracking, or stuff like that. It's just little technical adjustments. But no rituals really. Yeah, just Ryoko! That's all I had to do. That's right back in. Anything else? Questions about theater or anything? Did you guys see that movie Gods and Generals? I don't think anybody saw it. Sorry. It was a Civil War movie I did with Jeff Daniels and like 100,000 other people. But it was just terrible, just awful. But it was cool because we got to play soldiers. I was a general in the Civil War, and I'm marching across this field with stuff blowing up, and soldiers, and I had 1,500 reenactors I was in command of, and it's too bad the movie's awful, but we had such a good time doing that stuff, playing war. Any other questions about anything?
You said your son is 6 now?
Yeah.
And you said he's into Pokemon.
Yeah.
Are you going to consider letting him watch Tenchi?
Yeah, I'll expose him to it, see if he likes it.
A little later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are all those girls hanging around Daddy?
You're right. Wait a minute, is she naked in the house?
What's
Remember that one? It was like androgyny. It's not really any features, but they're all naked. And what is going on? Anyway, anything else? What did we talk about? Disney. Disney's interesting to work for. I was supposed to. I did the narration on one of the Winnie the Pooh movies for their direct-to-video. It was like at the height of direct-to-video, when they wouldn't even have to release it into the theaters. They could just release it direct-to-video, and all the parents would buy it because they wanted something new for the kids to watch, so they didn't have to watch the other movie 100,000 times. And there was another Winnie the Pooh. It was the Heffalump movie, and I just had like 5 lines of narration at the top, and they wanted it in a British dialect. So they hire me, and I come in, and they hire like a dialect coach to work with me, even though I already knew it in British dialect, so we ended up just going out to lunch. They waste so much money. I spent hours with a dialect coach. We're just going to lunch, talking. What a wait. So I go in and record it, right? I think I'm part of this Winnie the Pooh movie, and I get through several viewings, approvals of the suits and stuff, and then finally at the end, the one producer just goes, let's have Winnie the Pooh read those lines. I mean, I could have, there were just the residuals from that alone, I could have eaten for a year.
Was that Jim Cumming?
Yeah. It was great, nothing against him, but there's a guy who makes 6 figures, probably more now, 6 figures a year at that time, and that was back in the 90s, doing Winnie the Pooh. That's all. You'd come in, work a couple hours, be done, making 6 figures a year, just Winnie the Pooh. That's all he had to do. And he was doing a ton of stuff. So he's just swimming in it. It's like, just give me a piece. Just one little piece. Give me a little narration. Come on! It drives you crazy sometimes. That's all right. Yeah.
Is there a a dream role that you've ever wanted to play, or have you achieved a role like that you thought when you started acting, like, that's a role I want to do eventually, like a bucket list role?
Bucket list rules? Yeah, I've gotten to do some of those, actually. That's good. I played Iago in Othello, and Salieri in Amadeus. Got to play Tartuffe. Some classical theater roles that I've always wanted to do. Getting to play Julius Caesar. A lot of Shakespeare I've gotten to do, I've always wanted to do, which is great. Yeah, quite a few. Still a few on there that I'd like to. The Scottish play, or not the theater, I play Macbeth. I'd love to play Macbeth.
Cool.
I'd love to do Henry IV, stuff like that. Yeah, classical theater is really where I love. Yeah.
You said you did a little bit of books on tape.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. What were some of the stories that you did?
Oh, that was really...
company?
Well, Recording for the Blind was great because you would walk in and you didn't know what you were going to get. Because whoever the students or people, blind people needed things recorded, it could be a law student, and you were reading this really dry tax law textbook. Oh, my God. Other times it was an astrophysics book, which was really exciting to me because that's something I love, but it was very complicated, and you're reading mathematical equations. It get very challenging. And then one time I'd walk in and I was reading from the Quran. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I'd never been exposed to the Quran. This is really neat. And then one time I walked in and they handed me Long Day's Journey into Night, which is this massive play, this great classical American play. So I knew what to do, but I had to play all the different characters myself. So that's really great. It's a great exercise, and that's something you don't have to have a resume or work really hard to get the job. If you ever want just practice and see if you're any good at this, or just keep yourself honed, find out in your local community where the recording for the blind is. They have them all over, and just say, I want to volunteer. They'll be happy to have you. Takes a little bit of training. They'll bring you in and give you some training. You have to have some facility for it at least. But it's a great thing to do, and it helps develop your voice a little bit. So check it out. It's a great place to start. See how you sound. And then you have to listen to yourself. And has anybody ever done that? Listen to yourself, recorded yourself, listen to your voice? Yeah, what do you think? It's terrible, isn't it? Nobody likes it when you first hear your voice. Oh, is that how I sound? That's not how I thought I sounded. I thought I sounded like this. So it's a great way also to get used to that, because everybody has to get used to that. It's like seeing yourself on film. You're like, oh, is that how I look? That's not how I pictured myself. So check it out. Yeah. Anything else?
Have you ever been to Japan?
I haven't. I've met some of the Japanese actors. One of the cons, we got to meet them, and another time we got to go out to dinner with a couple of them. I met Aika. She didn't really speak much English. I didn't speak any Japanese, but we had a translator, and it was interesting to meet them. But I'd love to go over to Japan sometime and check it out. It's a fascinating civilization. Yeah.
Did you ever have any trouble with any of the cultural references working with so much Japanese English?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's again an issue for the polished script I was talking about. So they would have a joke in Japanese, which would make no sense in American. There were many times we'd be in the booth and we'd come across this thing and look at the producer, Miyoko, and just like, what? Why is that funny? And she'd be giggling and laughing and like, I don't get it. It was just a cultural thing. It didn't make. And then there would be references sometimes. Like at the opening ceremony, I was talking about that story about there was an episode where Ryoko thought she was pregnant, and she had a seed pod, I think, or something. So she thought she was pregnant. So the line was about she's craving something, and in Japanese it was some particular food. So Miyoko had to ask us and say, well, what would be the American version of that? And I said, pickles and ice cream. That's the cliche. A pregnant woman craves pickles and ice cream. So that's what we made it. We had to translate culturally to make the joke work. So it became pickles and ice cream. So, yeah. But yeah, sometimes we think like, why is that funny? And Miyoko just be laughing and laughing. Just different cultures. That's all.
She was sitting with the egg on her lap. Anytime now, it's due. Anytime.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Can you do some lines for us from Tenchi?
Some lines? Gosh, do you remember one in particular? What was the one where the demons crashing through the front door? And I came running down the hall, and I said to Ryoko, it's for you! I did a lot of that, a lot of yelling. Anything else? Yeah.
Has your voice acting the voices you've done, has that ever come out in real life by accident? Has it ever just
oh my, good question.
Honey? I don't think so. I don't think that's really happened.
The part I love is that the 6-year-old, so Matt reads at night to the 6-year-old, and it's so entertaining because he does all the voices.
That's true.
Of every character in every story.
Reading books at night to my son, I get to really play again and do all kinds of different voices and stuff, and he loves it. I'm just afraid he's going to go to somebody else's house for a sleepover. They're going to read a book and they're going to, you're not good at all! It's going to be awkward. Did I see a hand? Yeah.
What do you think of Tenchi as a character, personality and everything?
I think he's great. It was really interesting to adjust to the frustrating element that he would never really respond to the women's overtures. He just would never get past that awkward phase of, come on already. You're a healthy young boy.
But he wanted to be a shrine priest.
Well, that's true, yeah. But so that was interesting to adjust to. But it was also, I think, one of the dynamics that kept it interesting. You never know when, if ever, that was going to happen, that he would eventually commit to one of the women or not, or which one would win. Or so that dynamic, I think, is one of the elements that always kept everybody watching. Yeah.
Did you get was the feedback from Japan when you would do it? Was that quick, or was that something that happened over an extended period of time?
I don't remember getting any direct feedback. We would all get it through Miyoko, the pioneer producer. She would relay any feedback, and I think it's kind of like you'd only hear. Excuse me, my breakfast is going. You'd only hear if there was a problem, something they didn't like. I think a couple of times we had to re-record a couple of things because I don't know, we got too crazy. Or I can't remember what the feedback was, but something like just record that again and kind of keep it low, bring the tone down or something. But, yeah, I don't remember any direct feedback. Yeah, they seemed to like what we were doing. So. Yeah.
How strict were the Japanese in the way you recorded for the shows? I mean, what kind, were they very like, we want this, or were they just,
It varied. The Tenchi, they pretty much left us alone, as I recall. But sometimes you would walk in for a ADR, and they would say, "Here, we're gonna play you the original Japanese actor. Could you try and match that?" That would happen sometimes, and other times they'd just say, give us what your take on it is." But other times you had to be more restricted. Do what this kind of sound like this guy sounds. But so it kind of varied. Yeah. Anything else? You want to be a voice actor? You just like Tenchi? Like anime? Yeah, cool. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, maybe we can kind of wrap it up. It's getting towards 1, I think. And I think they have something else in this room. So we're at 1 o'clock. So if there's nothing else, thanks very much, guys, for attending my panel.
Thanks for coming.